Okay, we're live.
Okay. Very good. Welcome, everybody, to the Town Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for November 21st, 2022. If you could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we're going to go into the roll call. Noreen, if you could do the roll call, please, I'd appreciate it.
Surely. Chairman Payne,
Here.
Commissioner Claffey, Commissioner Haggerty,
Here.
Commissioner Havens, Commissioner Linares,
Here.
Commissioner Trister,
Here.
Commissioner Woods,
Here.
Commissioner Droz,
Here.
Commissioner Gill,
Here.
Commissioner Pascarelli.
Here.
Great. Thank you, Noreen.
You're welcome.
We're going to set Commissioner Gill for Commissioner Claffey and Commissioner Droz for Commissioner Havens. Next thing on the agenda is approval of agenda. I don't believe there's any changes.
There are no changes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. We will go right into public participation. If there's anybody here or if there's anybody on the line that would like to speak, please raise your hand. Share my screen.
Mr. Chair, there are two people in the room. I don't see anybody that has raised the hand.
Okay, thank you. Any remarks from commissioners? Okay, we have two public hearings tonight. The procedures for the public hearings, the order of proceedings at a public hearing shall be the following. A, convening by the chairperson. B, reading of the notice by the commission secretary or commissioner designated by the chairperson to act in his stead. C, presentation by the application. D, town planner report on the application. E, persons wishing to speak in favor of the application limited to 3 minutes per person. F, persons wishing to speak in opposition to the application limited to 3 minutes per person. And G, rebuttal by the applicant limited to 5 minutes total. During the public hearing, it shall be within the discretion of the chairperson whether the time limitations should be varied slightly, provided the commission consents to any such variance by a majority vote. If I could have Commissioner Woods read the first petition 46-22, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, petition 46-22, special permit section 6.2.5 for a freestanding sign at 203 Costello Road. Applicant, Sign Pro Inc., owner, 203 Costello Road, LLC. Contact Christine, Rossidafiero. I think I said that right.
Mhm. Very good. Is the applicant here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Sorry if I butchered your name.
Would you like to make a short presentation to us on what you're planning?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry. My name is Christine Bracciaferro. I'm here on behalf of Sign Pro Inc. for 203 Costello Road. They're applying for a non-illuminated freestanding sign. The sign itself is 35.25 inches high, 120 inches wide for 29.4 square feet. It's non-illuminated. It's a business identification sign that will say Moju Brothers Foundation, and will also have the 203 address served on the skirts of the base. It will not be in any site obstruction for pedestrians or vehicles. It is at the end of a cul-de-sac, so it will not be in the way of anything as far as I'm concerned. And I'm not sure if you have any other questions or issues with it. Please let me know. Oh.
Very good. Is there any questions from the commissioners?
Pretty straightforward.
The staff, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Mr. Chair, not really. This is PD zoning district. It is a sign that is proposed to be non-illuminated sign, a freestanding sign. It's a pretty straightforward application. We have reviewed it. The staff did not have any comments, except that should this sign in the future become an illuminated kind of sign, we had told them that they would need to come back to this commission for the modification of the approval.
Okay, very good. If there's no questions from the commissioners, we'll go to the public. Is there anybody either here or online that would like to speak in favor of this application?
And again, Mr. Chair, there are still two people, but nobody has raised their hand.
Is there anybody wishing to speak in opposition? Okay, hearing none, I think I would entertain a motion to for this petition.
So, Mr. Chairman, that we close petition 4622 and move it to old business for possible action tonight.
Very good. Motion made by Commissioner Woods. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Gill. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, the next petition is petition 47-22. If Commissioner Trista, would you like to read that, please?
Certainly. Petition 47-22 zoning regulations amendment, section 3.3.2 regarding parking or storage of RVs, boats, and trailers in residential zones. Applicant Newington TPZ, contact Renata Bertotti.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Chair, we will actually have staff, Mike D'Amato, present on this application tonight.
So, following discussion and a couple of meetings ago, we talked about some previous revisions that we had suggested to you guys or provided for you to informally comment on. We took that discussion and made changes from there. The staff report that I submitted basically gives you an overview of what the changes would amount to. It's essentially a simplification of how we treat the buffering or screening requirement and how we handle the location of the vehicle in the side or rear yard. So we've taken out the distinguishment between sizes and locations and what types of screening and some of the other stuff. And essentially, the current language will provide for a 6-foot solid fence, no parking within 5 feet, and a maximum length of 45 feet or 13 feet in height. Then the language related to not being parked within or stored in the front yard, no more than two of any such vehicle being allowed on the property, how they can be parked for condominium lots, and not being parked under temporary canopies or fabric shelters is proposed to remain the same as the current regulation.
Very good.
So the new provisions that are proposed are that no boat, trailer, camper, or recreational vehicles may be parked or stored within 5 feet of the property line. We discussed this previously. This is consistent with how we regulate our detached accessory structures. The logic behind here was that if you are, if it's permissible to allow structures such as, for example, a two-car detached garage, two-car detached like garage type of structure that can be located up to 5 feet to the property line, then this would be sort of equivalent type of encroachment. So that's how we regulated and decided on this 5-foot line, and that was discussed previously. And then the other thing that was a recent discussion was the limits on height. that we discussed whether we should have any, whether we should regulate the mast, I think is the name of the stick. And we ended up concluding, the commission ended up concluding that the appropriate height of that height regulation should be at 13.5 feet. So those are the new things that have been shown here that you haven't seen in the last draft.
Very good.
You did a good job on it. Commissioners, have any questions for staff?
Just have one question, Mr. Chair.
Yes, go right ahead.
I think it's a pretty good job here of simplifying things down. One question I have with subsection A there is no parking of vehicles in the front yard. I know Eric had mentioned a few times that he gets a lot of calls at the beginning of the season with people bringing their units out and setting them up for the season. And then at the end of the season, when people are kind of breaking things down to store, you know, you get neighbors calling, hey, they're parking their things out in the driveway. And he says he kind of just lets it go because it's just temporary. You know, does staff feel that they need to put any sort of language in there to allow that official buffer of a couple days, or just kind of leave it up to the zoning enforcement officer to just kind of take it case by case?
Zoning enforcement is not an immediate action. So zoning enforcement is not something that happens like a police action. It's not something that happens such as health enforcement type of a thing, right? Zoning is enforced by, there is a zoning enforcement, then there is a notice of violation, then there is an action, and all of it takes time. We are required to issue a notice. We are required to give people time to comply with our notice. So with all that in place, I think allowing some permissible time is really not something that would be advisable here, because it just extends the whole process, which is not necessary because the process itself allows for certain time to comply.
Very well. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Woods.
On D with a side yard storage, you need, and the new regulation, you can't do it without providing a 6-foot fence or some sort of a green planting for a permitted vehicle. Is it the 5-foot setback still?
Yes, it's
Required.
5 feet is to side and rear, correct?
And do we make that clear? Because we talk about rear, but we don't talk, I don't think anywhere that it's 5 for rear and.
It is 5 feet off a property line, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
I know we talked about that a lot, but I think the 5 foot goes along, as the staff was saying, goes along with some of the other setback requirements for sheds or garages or other things. So I think it's perfect. Any other questions from the commissioners? We'll go to the public. Is there anybody from the public that'd like to speak in favor of this application? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition?
Just take sharing.
Hearing none, nobody's on there raising their hand.
Nobody's raising
Okay.
their hand.
Hearing none, then I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion to close the public hearing on petition 47-22 and move it to old business for possible action.
Motion made.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Trista. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. To close petition 47-22 and move it to old business for possible action. Next thing on our agenda is approval for minutes. We have nothing there. All right.
So, Mr. Chair, the minutes we received after the packets were issued, they were emailed to the commission. I am not certain whether or not you had time to read them in time for this meeting. So with that in mind, I will ask you if you can accept them. If you cannot, then we can postpone that to the next meeting.
Yeah, well, I think we'll wait until the next meeting on those. Okay.
Good.
Okay. The Next thing on the agenda is new business. Petition 37-22. If Commissioner Lenars, if you could read that for me, I'd appreciate it.
Petition 37-22, site plan for construction of a building and associated parking lot at 680 North Mountain Road, applicant and owner, Ballamore LLC, contact Kevin Summers.
Green on top.
There we go. Now we're green. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the commission. My name is Francis Vaca. I'm a professional engineer at the BSC Group in Glastonbury, Connecticut. I am here on behalf of Ballymore LLC and Alta Properties Group. They are located at 705 North Mountain Road in Newington. We are here tonight in support of a project at, it's the North Mountain Road Industrial Development. It is located at 680 North Mountain Road in Newington, Connecticut. And we are here to respectfully request the approval for section 5.3 site plan approval for a by right industrial development at this location. Just a quick explanation of location for those of you. It's located north of Hartford Avenue. It's right around the curve of North Mountain Road. There is a triangular parcel located there, and that is the current location of the 680 North Mountain Road. The gray area you see on the screen now is North Mountain Road, and the existing parcel size is 1.34 acres. It is an existing paved parking space, paved parking lot. So the area that's represented in blue is the parking lot area. The area in purple is the boundary line associated with the parcel, and then any of the remaining white areas within the parking within the lot is green space. I would like to just mention briefly that located to the south of the parcel, as identified here, there is a small section of wetlands. We did meet with wetland on we met with wetlands on the 15th, and we received approval from them. There is no substantial issue with regard to wetlands. As far as erosion and sedimentation control, there will be silt fence along the bottom of the site, and typical controls associated with the sides of the site. There will be our standard sediment control traps during construction. All of a sudden it will be collected here, and then we will have inlet protection on all of the drainage on the existing site and the standard town construction entrance. As far as the proposed development and what we were asking to do, the area in orange represented here, which is on the plans that were submitted, is the area associated with the building. It is a 17,300 square foot flex use building. So the intent behind flex use is it's essentially there's going to be a front to the building. The building front will be the public area. The rear of the building will be for building use, employee building use only. There will be overhead doors on the rear of the facility, and the flex use space is intended to be used along the lines of if there would be a landscape company, or if there would be a daycare, or if there would be a brewery, which I know the town has always been looking for. Something like that would essentially be used in this building. So there are no tenants at this point, but the intent behind this is the market for this type of building is pretty high at this point, and that is what is being proposed in this case. There, as I had mentioned earlier, there's going to be a front portion of the building. So this is what we're considering to be the public portion of the parking lot. And then there's a rear portion of the building, which is going to be the employee-only parking. There's 40 parking spaces in the front of the lot and then 13 in the rear for a total of 53 spaces. There's 3 handicap right at the front of the building in accordance with Connecticut Building Code. One of the main points that I'd like to point out, I know that the commission would like to be interested in this, is that there originally with the design, or I should say originally with the parking lot, there are 3 curb cuts. We are proposing 4, and as a result of coordination with planning and with engineering, to mitigate the fact that we would be increasing those number of curb cuts, we are including a fire department restricted access gate for the 3rd access into the site. So this gate will be closed at all times. It will not be intended for public use. The only time it will be used is in the event, God forbid, in the event of a fire or during snow plowing operations. So the usual access for the public is they will be entering through the second entrance, have full circulation in either direction around the front of the property to be able to access any of the pedestrian front entrances if the use is required to have public access, and then they will exit from the same entrance. The rear access around the building is going to be one way in order to maximize the space of the building on the site for industrial development. This will be, and there will be signage associated with this as a one-way entrance, and there will also be an additional sign that says this is for employee parking only. The employee parking will be located at the rear of the facility with 13 spaces. It is intended that the circulation associated with this is that those people that are utilizing the building, that work at the building, will park there, and then they will stay there for the majority of the day. There's not going to be public access into and out of the rear of the building. And then they will, when they're leaving, they will exit via the north curb cut. The width of the one-way in this area is designed intentionally to allow one of the building tenants to park adjacent to their flex use space to access the garage door portion of their, whether it be a storage or landscape or whatever the use is going to be. So the intent behind that is so there is still maintained access around the building while someone is utilizing parking adjacent to their flex use space. Green areas represented on the site are the green space that are now provided. So we are increasing the overall green space on the site. We are increasing the pervious space on the site. Therefore, we are reducing the peak discharge. So we do not require any detention from a drainage standpoint on the site. We are, from a water quality standpoint, there will be the circle on the left-hand side of your screen is going to be a hydrodynamic separator that will treat all of the water that is in the front parking area. This front parking area is reduced from the original existing parking lot that's currently there now, discharge 100% either onto North Mountain Road or into the existing catch basin that is currently on the site and discharged directly into the stormwater system for the town. By including this and by breaking up the site the way that we have it, there is a reduction in the overall discharge that enters North Mountain Road, and it will be cleaned as a result of the water quality associated with this hydrodynamic separator. On the rear of the facility, there's a small portion where sheet flow runoff will discharge to the south to maintain the flows into the wetland. This is just to ensure that we're not starving the wetland of any of the additional flows that it received. There is a stone filter strip shown with the oval, inside the oval, the dark green space is a filter strip that will essentially filter the water. It's basically a stone filter strip that will ultimately over time develop vegetation that will ultimately treat the water as it discharges towards the wetland area. I know one of the other items that is always a concern, especially nowadays with the increase in snow, we have allocated all of the areas identified in blue for snow storage. And we specifically did not place any snow storage within this discharge point for the wetland area. So all of this, obviously circulation vehicles, the snow removal vehicles will then coming in, following the one way and keeping all of the snow on adjacent away from the building. Any additional material that is not accounted for along the side will ultimately have to be pushed over into any of the areas along the front. And a brief summary before closing, just hitting the key criteria associated with the commission needs to usually look to existing and future character of the area. Currently the site is an open, unused parking lot. It's currently beginning to receive illegal refuse being dumped over on the side where it is our assumption that this building installation will effectively improve the character of the area and ultimately benefit this industrial development in this area. Traffic circulation, I touched on briefly by closing off this access point there, maintaining fire department access. So in other words, fire department has access through the site. They would open this gate in order to exit. Fire department access has circulation through around the rear of the building. And then again, as I spoke on, because this is initially, because this will be just building employee use, we do not feel that there will be an issue with traffic circulation associated with the site. Adequacy of public utilities, being an industrial area, there is adequate power for this facility depending on the use that it would be. We already received a MDC willingness to serve letter for this area, and all of the remaining utilities would be adequate for what is being proposed. Signage, lighting and landscape. The landscape that is being identified, there is some minor areas of landscaping around the corners of the building. They have all been cleared through planning and zoning and engineering, and they are all in accordance with requirements of the town. Signage wise, right at this point right here at the main public entrance would be the location of a site sign. It would not be internally illuminated. Basically just identifying the parcel itself. We don't have any specifics on the signage yet because there would be a number of facilities here. So it must identify the site itself. Safeguarding adjacent properties from depreciation. Again, as I spoke on, we believe this development will overall enhance this area. Suitability of the building design. The building is going to be a one-story building. The architecture for it has not been 100% finalized. However, it will be like I said, a one-story building. All of the overhead doors will be at the rear of the property, will not be visible from the street. And again, safeguards to promote orderly use of the site, adjacent use of properties. Again, as we have intended the design of this to be, so that there is the circulation by eliminating this third entrance, there should not be any concern as far as circulation associated with the property. Therefore, after all of that, we respectfully request the approval of the site plan for this 680 North Mountain Road industrial development. Thank you very much. Any questions?
We'll go to commissioners first. Any questions? Commissioner.
How you doing tonight? Quick question. Line of sight from leaving the parking lot. I've noticed on the curve that when you're leaving, you've got the two existing curb cuts that are on the north side now.
Yes.
Leaving one of those based on line of sight, the car is 75 feet away from you as they're coming around the curve. Have we looked at heights of landscapings on that curve to now be exiting on the south side to make sure we've got enough room to be able to react as people are coming around the curve?
So it's just so I'm clear. So if someone is stopped at the public access, making sure that we're looking up this direction to ensure that there is adequate.
That's all your public access is on the one at the bottom of your screen, correct? Yes. So in other words, pulling out of there, looking to the right,
Yes.
you've got cars coming around the curve.
Yep. Understood.
Currently, it's the opposite. You're leaving from the right and cars are coming from your left.
Right.
Same
right, right.
concept.
Yep. Understood.
Have we looked at height of what's going to be to their right, your plantings, to be able to see that we've got line of sight for cars coming around that curve?
I will ensure, yes, it's been looked at. I don't know the specifics of the plantings that will be installed, but I know that whatever is utilized for those plantings will be specifically designed to be able to handle sight distance. They're more like low shrub planting type, 1 foot to 2 foot high shrubbery type thing.
Okay.
To ensure that there is not going to become a problem from a sight distance standpoint. Yeah.
Okay.
Again, I don't have the specifics on the plantings. I could definitely get that provided. And we do have a landscaping plan that specifically identifies all of the plantings associated with that, but they will not cause an issue with regard to line of sight.
I only ask because I've noticed it specifically. It's tough on that curve for sure.
Yep,
So
understood.
appreciate it. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Gill?
Got a couple questions in regards to the back of the building.
Yes.
That 22-foot space there. Now, is any of that going to be signaged as a fire lane?
It can be signed as a fire lane. It is not, there is specifically no parking intended to be used for that. It would only be used for temporary parking only. So I should clarify what I had said earlier. If anyone is parking adjacent to their flex use space, it would only be used for temporary parking only. So in other words, they would be there for, picking up or dropping off, whatever the use may be, but it would not be allowed for them to park there full time for whatever the use of the building would be. They would have to park
And
in
no
the,
storage outside
no storage outside.
in that area? Okay. Because I can see this being abused,
I understand what you're saying.
and if you're going through the trouble of putting all this in there, for the fire department to utilize.
Right.
And, the storage is there, if it's not that big a deal to assign, at least one side of it as a fire lane.
Mhm.
And signage on there, then that would be, I would say that would be a good idea. The gate itself, somewhere I saw that they were having keys, a key box.
Yep, we are looking at 3 different options at this point. Well, technically 2. So the 2 options that are being pursued is it would be a Knox box similar to would be utilized for the development itself. So it would be a locked gate that would have the Knox box access. Actually, the 3 options being standard Knox box access. It would be an actual Knox lock that would be utilized, they're also looking at possibly doing a key code access similar to like a self-storage facility. So the fire department would have access to the code, and then obviously the owner and the representative doing the plowing would have access to the code. Those are the 3 options that are currently being discussed, and the finalized option hasn't been secured yet.
I think the Knox box system has an actual padlock.
Okay.
So if you set that gate system up with 2 padlocks, one being the Knox Fire Department and then one for your plowing and your people, instead of having Knox box that has a key in it,
right?
It's another
Step. Right.
to go with. The other just quick thing is signage on it. It's going to be a black gate, and there's not a lot of illumination. There's one stop sign on one half of it. I would suggest that there be some more signage on there if it's going to be closed all the time.
If is clarification, yeah, exactly, yep. Yep, that could
Is there
easily be
any,
supplied.
signage going on the street side?
As,
Not for the gate, but for the building itself?
I don't know if we have not finalized anything as far as signage. Are you asking in regard to if, like a tenant sign or something like that?
Yeah, so,
We don't have obviously any leases or anything signed at this point. We don't have any specifics to how the signs, we have not looked into that specifically. With the exception of the site sign.
all right, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions? Commissioner Woods?
Yeah, you meet the minimum requirement of green space. Well, I understand you're adding more green space, 'cause it's a park lot, right? So you're taking that down. But do we have a standard? I thought we did. But I don't see
Yeah,
it on the plan.
10%. Renata, could you answer that?
Reviewed, yes,
It's been reviewed.
yes.
Is part of the green space, the two areas in the front on, next to the two ends of the building?
Yes.
So those areas won't be used for storage? There's a little fence around them.
I apologize, I missed that part of my presentation. So the two end spaces that you see adjacent to the building, they are considered part of the green space. They will be pervious. They would either be like a pervious patio or like a pervious playground area for if it would be a like a daycare center or something like that. Whatever that surface treatment will be a pervious treatment to ensure that we maintain our green space requirement. And then from the original submission to this latest submission for the meeting, we've added some additional green space within the parking area itself to satisfy the requirements of the zoning regulations for green space within parking area in addition to that.
Thank you.
And in the rear of the building for your overhead doors, you're backing out into a 22 foot space, right? From each one of the doors, I believe there's 12 or 13 doors on the building. Do you think that's sufficient space? I mean, it seems pretty tight.
It is tight.
It seems extremely tight.
It is. We recognize that we were, it was one of those maximizing the space of the building. Well, and again, we also don't necessarily know what the tenants are going to be. It's.
I guess I would follow on Commissioner Gill's theory that I think that you would have to maintain that back access road as fire access, because if anybody parks on it, you're either A, going to block the door, or again, 22 foot, you're pretty much blocking a fire apparatus from getting around there.
Is there even enough room? So if there was a few trucks parked there as tenants as they were inside, how much room are we gonna have for a vehicle or a truck to get around again?
I mean, not much. If you look on sheet C3, it shows you the fire access. So you can see the lanes drawn out. There's not much, other obviously except for where the area where you have the parking on the rear corner of the two buildings. 45 off.
So
It's tight.
is a pickup or a dump truck 15 feet, 16 feet?
Well, the parking spot's 18 feet. So
18 feet for a
18
parking
yeah.
spot. So that means there's only 4 feet left if somebody's parked there to get around? Hi.
My name's Kevin Summers. I'm the applicant with Frank here. So I just want to clarify a few things. The rear of the building will have the garage doors, but it is not meant for vehicles to be pulling into the building. It's just for them to pull up parallel to the building, do some unloading. So if your box truck, say, is 12 feet wide or so, they still have another 10 or 12 feet to get around. That's the purpose. We widened up that.
So
rear
more like a
driveway.
receiving area is what you're thinking, not coming in and out.
So none of
We do
the,
not intend to have vehicles inside the building. So if it's a contractor space, they'll pull their vans up in the morning, load them up with their tools. If one becomes a brewery or some sort of a restaurant, they can get their food deliveries in the back.
are the spaces from front to back? So a contractor could have a small office in the front and then storage space in the back?
Yes. Front will be a small storefront. There'll be an office, bathroom, and however that tenant wants it set up, but the spaces will run front to back. So you'll take the whole space. We don't intend to cut them in
What
half front
prevents
to back.
them from bringing their trucks inside?
Lease if we, I don't know how we would handle that or enforce it, other than keeping an eye on them.
Okay. Any other questions? Staff have anything?
Well, no, the main comment from the staff on the site, on the design, was the provision of the 4 curb cuts. I believe currently the site has 3, correct? So our contention when this application originally was submitted to us was that, you know, any site that has 4 curb cuts was too many on, in this kind of situation where you have this curve, you know, it was just not prudent. We had met with applicants on a number of occasions and they provided this locked area that was to be accessible only for the emergency access. And effectively, by doing that, brought the number of curb cuts down to 3, which is what they currently have. We also discussed, and I would like to point this to the commission, that, you know, this is an industrially zoned property. So there are certain uses that are allowed as a right. Those kind of uses in industrial zoning district tend to be low traffic generators. Things that are allowed in industrial zones tend to be not super high traffic generators. So right now, as you're looking at the site plan application and as you're looking at the uses that could be perhaps site plan type of use or permitted type of uses, you know, the concern is limited. If this property comes back to you with proposal for, let's say, brewery, proposal for, let's say, something that requires a special permit, something that will be perhaps something that require a higher traffic generation, they may limit themselves by the design of the site, by the design of this building, because I don't know that this design necessarily lends itself to provision of a high traffic generator service on this location. So, you know, they're providing certain design in industrial district that perhaps works for industrial district, but you know, it may in the future limit certain kind of uses that perhaps generate traffic. And you will have that opportunity to review that when it comes to you on the special permit application. So I think that's the best that I can offer you. You know, it's not ideal, but it's not an ideal site to begin with.
Now, can they use the ends of the building as green space and then still use them as storage areas? I thought green space was green space and.
So I don't know, you know, Eric and Mike, you guys review this. Did you review this or did Eric review this? Do you know?
Yeah, Eric did the
Eric
review on
did?
this one.
And I have not looked at this definition, honestly, so I do not know, but
Intention to use anything other than a building for storage.
Okay, so the 2 ends of the building will be just green space. Then why are you gonna fence them in though?
I think he's, if I may, Mr.
Unless-
Chairman, I think it's possible, that if they had a daycare center, right, so it'd be an outdoor activity area, so, yeah, playground, which would be a permeable surface.
Which would be a special exception, exactly what Renata was saying, that
yes.
they might not be able to get a special exception because you're limiting your whole site here with only so many parking and everything. So as long as they understand that. So you won't use the ends of the buildings for storage areas?
Storage, no. The main intent when we first decided this is we actually own the building across the street and there's a daycare there. So one thought is to move them over here if they're willing to move over and give them a little outside space that they don't have now. They have a nice new building. But again, that would be under a separate permit when we get there.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner Woods.
I think I was reading the plan when you made your presentation on as to which of the entryways is gonna get shut down for, is it the north or south?
It is, here, I'll put it back.
North.
The north?
Right there. That's the one that's being closed off. So the front, this front area is essentially. Sorry about that. This front area essentially functions as, assume that this didn't exist, essentially. So it's entrance and exit via the second entrance, and then there's access in both directions around this loop.
And the other one is only emergency access.
Exactly. And again, the reason behind the emergency access from that point is fire apparatus can't make this swing. So from a security and emergency standpoint, our assumption is that the fire apparatus would enter through this main entrance for the purposes of getting there for the fire. And then when everything is all done, has access to get out without having to back out. It's essentially the thought behind that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mhm. Any other questions from
I
the
have a question,
commissioners?
Mr. Chair.
Certainly, go right ahead.
Is the intention to only have one tenant in this space, or is it possible to be subdivided?
More than likely to be subdivided.
Okay, how many are you thinking?
The way we have our thoughts now, are it could possibly be 12, around approximately 1,500 square foot spaces. But one tenant may decide to take 4 of those. It all depends on what they're looking for to move in.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
If I could just jump in quick. Section 4.3.2 prohibits storage in yards. So at least on the corners of these buildings, it's within the setback, so they couldn't use those end caps for storage based on that section.
Thank you. Mike. The staff have anything else?
No, so we reviewed this. There are some comments that are minor and technical in nature at this point, outstanding.
Is that from the fire marshal and the town engineer? Do we have those letters?
Yes.
Could we read them into the record?
Not, they're like long, but I can tell you. So the fire marshal essentially says the plans look okay to me regarding the access to the site, and then he goes into long list of recommendations as to what these Knox box things should be. So I'd prefer not to go
Okay.
into like reading all that. And the town engineer, who is very verbose anyways, has like a 3-page memo, but essentially doesn't have too many comments, and they have communicated, so these comments can be all addressed.
Okay.
The major point, again, in all of our meetings was the provision of curb cuts, the sightline issue, and whether or not that was going to be addressed. And that was addressed by this emergency access. And I will tell you that you're not like super happy, but we had to take it. It's current situation on that site. So we don't really get to be unhappy about it either.
Mhm. Okay. Very good. If there's anything else? Go- yeah.
The applicant, it's just, want to make it clear, I think from what you're hearing here, well, this will probably pass, but it's passing under the industrial use. If you then come back in front of us and change that use where it requires special permitting, you could lose some of that space because you won't have the parking. You're just meeting the parking right now, depending on what that usage is. And I'm sure that's not your goal, but you just need to know that that's out there. And I think a brewery would probably be one of them. My guess is your brewery count for parking is much higher than it is, or daycare is going to be a lot higher than an industrial use. That's all. I want to make sure that we've kind of communicated that to you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there anything else? Hearing none, the petition 37-22 is under old business, so we'll discuss it there. We're gonna go to old business now. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, the first petition under old business is petition 46-22. If Commissioner Gill could read that motion.
Petition 46-22, special permit for freestanding sign at 203 Costello Road. Motion to approve petition 46-22, special permit, section 6.2.5 for a freestanding sign at 203 Costello Road. Applicant Sign Pro Inc., owner 203 Costello Road, LLC. Conditions. The addition of internal or external illumination of the freestanding sign will require modification of this special permit.
Okay, motion made. Do I have a second? Seconded by Commissioner Woods. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Motion carries unanimously. Next petition on old business is petition 37-22. If Commissioner Haggerty would read that, I'd appreciate it.
Certainly. Make a motion to approve petition 37-22, construction of building and parking lot at 680 North Mountain Road. Applicant and owner, Ballamore LLC, contact K. Summers. Referenced plans, North Mountain Road Industrial Development. North Mountain Road prepared August 29th, 2022, and revised October 14th, 2022 for Alta Property Group LLC by BSE Group, sheets 1 through 17. Conditions, comments from DJ Zordon, Fire Marshal, dated November 3rd, 2022 will be addressed. Secondly, comments from Town Engineer Gary Fiersberg, dated October 28th, 2022 will be addressed.
Okay, thank you that's a motion. Do I have a second? Seconded by Commissioner Trista. Any discussion? Anything further they would like to add? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations.
Good luck.
The next petition on old business would be petition 47-22, Commissioner Lenars.
Petition 47-22, text amendment to section 3.3.2, parking or storage of RVs, boats, and trailers. Motion to approve petition 47-22, zoning regulation amendment, section 3.3.2 regarding parking or storage of RVs, boats, and trailers in residential zones. Applicant, Newington TPZ, contact R. Latati.
Okay, motion made. Do I have a second?
I'm sorry, conditions, the effective date of this amendment shall be January 1st, 2023.
Thank you, Commissioner Lenars. Has the motion on the table. Do we have a second? Commissioner Rhodes seconds it. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay. Next thing on the agenda is petitions for scheduling. Petitions for public hearing scheduling. There's nothing on there. We'll go to the town planner's report.
So we have a couple of applications coming up for you on the future agenda. And I'm just pulling that up now, so if you give me 1 second. I'll do that report real quick. So 60 Prospect Street will be before you at your meeting date on December 14th. This is a site plan modification for a parking lot expansion. Also, 102 Halleran Drive will be a special permit application for creation of a rear lot. There are a couple of applications in front of the Conservation Commission for replacement of sidewalk, modification of a permit at 249 Day Street. So you recently saw that application. That's that property where all those Eversource trucks are parked. They're actually adding area and now going through the Conservation Commission for wetlands permit, and then they'll be in front of you probably in January to get a modification of site plan from you on that. And then the next thing that I wanted to talk to you about is to just give you sort of like to date, where are we at with regulation amendment projects? If I may, there's a couple of recommendations sort of for an interim period because the department will be a bit understaffed for time period, and some things that we started will probably have to be halted for a little bit. But I really don't want many of these projects to stop because we started some really important stuff. So couple of general notes are that Eric has a running list of things that are just random things that we're finding in the regulations that are just wrong. There are inconsistencies, the regulations that say you need 5 feet here, but 7 feet for the same thing in a different sections and things like that. So he has a running list of these like weird things that we keep in the regulations. So he has a summary of that. Rather than coming to you meeting after meeting with these small things, we're keeping that list as something that we are planning on fixing as part of the comprehensive review of the regulations and comprehensive fix. As you know, I have secured some funding for the comprehensive review of the regulations, and we have started doing that. Mike has presented to you that spreadsheet of uses, and we also did a couple of business sections when we did the listening sessions with people. So those are things that I recommend continue. So those items, eventually you will have a new planner. So first of all, I think right now there is an RFP that I drafted that we could go out and ask for a consultant to come in and work on new regulations. However, that job requires so much management, and it requires commitment from town staff, and it requires commitment from you. You can't revise regulations without meeting with the group that does that, like at least bi-monthly. Like it needs to be like every other week, minimum. Eric needs to do that. The staff needs to do that. And then the commission probably needs to do that at least once a month. You need to keep checking because people don't know how to change your regulations without you. So with that in mind, I did this RFP draft, but kind of put it on hold until new planner comes in. Maybe they will want to revise it a little bit, and or maybe a lot. I don't know. But once you have a staffing in place, everything is ready to go with that. I do recommend to keep that structure of that list because that's user friendly. I worked in a number of towns. People love that. When you are on the website, when you are in the book, and you have a list that tells you this zone, you look for a use, you scroll PSP, whatever. There is like a thing that tells you easy, simple, that's really what people are looking for. So definitely use that spreadsheet Mike
I've been called worse.
created. I'm sorry. That Mike created. And the listening sessions. So we did that for downtown area. And then we sent out a follow-up survey with questions, and we did it twice. And we didn't get any tractions from it. Like after we did it twice with the survey questions, like we really didn't get like too many responses from people. And I didn't really expect much from it, but we have to do that. Like I think more we do it, more people will get used that's how it's done and that's how it should be done, and more responses we will get from people. So I definitely say, those are like a couple things I'm sort of proud of. So we adopted temporary events, we can strike that off. We adopted RVs, I can strike that out of this sheet. B and CD zone, we have a mailing list for listening sessions. So you're ready to go. Like once you decide you want to start listening sessions on those, they're ready to be mailed. Like we have a mailing list, we have a survey questions, like that's ready to go. Newington Junction TOD, I'll get to that in a second. So CROG TOD study for Newington Junction, they're finally starting to move on that. So they have provided me with a concept, not just me, but all the towns they worked in. I want to say like 8 towns on Hartford line. And they finally provided some concept drawings and concept analysis as to what just the bulk and scale of development should look to support the market and economics in the area. And we had some comments which we provided. Now they want to do a public information session, but they wanted to first address just initial comments that I had. So they did that, and now I'm looking at the stuff that they submitted. So they will be approaching you, I'm expecting fairly soon, with the public information scheduling. The way they want to do this is they don't want to go every town individually. So they will collect a couple of towns together, and I don't know who they will team us with. It's likely going to be West Hartford and some towns that are adjacent to us on the line. So they'll have few towns, and they will have a time when they do this. It's going to be a Zoom meeting. They'll advertise it. They'll pull people. So you'll know about it, but they'll do this informational session of how they do it. And then the funds that I have secured for our then TOD continuation of that should be used to build on their study. So Mike, you want to talk a little bit about then what we did on your end for Newington Junction, because we also did a little bit of on our end market analysis kind of for Newington Junction as well.
So I guess one of the things that's important when you're talking about any type of project, including this, is trying to get a sense of how the ideas that the regulations or these studies will identify can convert into a project. And so what I started to do was look at several projects in the Hartford region and get a sense of what the development costs were. So we looked at what the construction costs related to building permits, what the land acquisition costs were, what the density they got were, to try to move in a direction of, I'm also working with the assessor to determine what we can use for average land values here, with the intent of trying to understand what density would need to be required for the project to be supported in that area based upon the parcels and the land and what would need to happen. If there's only an appetite for 5 units an acre, nothing will happen there, because we will be able to have basically want to have math that will show what density needs to be there. And so I evaluated, there's a couple of projects in West Hartford, there's a couple in Bloomfield. I looked at Windsor Locks, again, just to try to get a sense, and then provide examples of what these units, what these developments look like from a density perspective, so that if somebody says, what about this project, or I know about that project, or we determine we need, just to give you a real legitimate example, I'm sure a number of you are familiar with the Heirloom Flats building next to Bloomfield Town Hall. That's 40 units an acre. The telescreen that they just built across the street is about 38 units an acre.
What's our count for the Fen Road area?
So I started looking at that, and I'm trying to get a lot of the data from the actual building department isn't in totally. So I have like the 96 Payne Road, which is building 2 of the 3333 project. What's Meadow?
I'm talking about the one over on Newington Junction, the TOD area by Fen Road.
So Cedar, like.
Cedar Point?
Cedar Point, yeah.
No, that's Dakota.
No, the Anthony Properties one.
No, I don't have that one.
Yeah.
I was trying to pull projects that we've had building permits for, so we could see what their costs were. So I pulled the Pike, Cedar Point, and 96 Payne Road. We have their building costs. So I haven't got their land costs yet. Again, just to try to figure out essentially what their cost per acre is. Because we need the projects to convert to reality.
But
So
that's, the idea was really to come down with minimum density required to cover the cost of site assemblage, environmental remediation, building costs, and then public improvements that are necessary to build this, right? Because we are trying to get to that like threshold. You need a minimum of 40 units an acre, 70 units an acre, or 7 units an acre. I don't know what that number is, but whatever that number is, in order for anything to happen, you need to go higher than that, right? In order for profit. So that's the idea behind what I'm trying to get from CROG, what I'm trying to get from us. And then then it's easy to do design. You know, once you know this like unit per acre type of thing, then we can talk about floor area ratio and parking and heights and, you know, is it 1 building or 3 buildings, or is it, you know, this type of design or that type of design. But I think really the requirement for the density and commercial need is the minimum knowledge that we have to have before we can say anything about TOD. So we're working kind of on it without even hiring yet anybody out, but it's all like in the process. It's not, it hasn't been dormant. Dormant.
It almost has to be a little bit flexible for the developer. Otherwise, nothing's going to get developed there.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also, I think we have to have this information to draft TOD regulations, because that's how your regulations will be attractive to developers. Otherwise, you may end up boxing yourself into a regulation that's still too prohibitive, still too restrictive. So the downtown study, again, I told you this a couple of months ago, I would like to see that money split up. I definitely see a need for economic analysis first to be done before the design study is, or design concept is done on that. I think whenever we talk or think about downtown, we have to think about Hartford Hospital property. Best Market is a no-brainer, like that property, even though we don't own it, it has to be part of that study. But I also think because Hartford Hospital is so big and so impactful, they should somehow factor in as a medical changes or as anything, like they should be part of at least study, if not the design. We applied for the phase 1 implementation grant for Newington Junction historic trail grant. So we applied for some money to get that signage. Last time we got the planning grant. Planning grant said, get the signs and get the National Historic Registry thing and this, that, and the other thing. So we started with the signage. So that we'll see if we get the money for that. My housing rehabilitation loan money is, so, and this is important to the Planning Commission because this says where we are at as a community, and I'll get to this in a minute too. So I'm out of money with the housing rehabilitation loan, and this has not happened in really, really long time. Now, this is a revolving loan type of funding. So what happens with this is at some time in past, there was some money that was put in this fund and people borrow from it. And then as people sell their houses or, changes happen, that money gets returned into that fund, and then we're able to re-loan to other people to fix their roofs and sidings and things like that. I probably at this point have at least like 4 or 5, maybe even more people on the waiting list, and other people have not applied knowing that there is such a long waiting list. So that tells me that there is a need.
How much was in that account?
I'm sorry?
Do you know how much was in the account?
$90-some thousand at the beginning of the year.
It's gone. It's gone. You've used it all.
Well, I
I
mean,
understand it'll come back, but right now it's all committed.
it's all committed, yes. No, it's all committed.
Is that what was in the account originally? When it's
I
first
don't know.
started?
I don't know what it was when it originally, when it
I'm
first
just
started.
curious and whether or not it's something the council should look at and maybe putting additional funds into it.
I do not know what it was when it was original. I know it was like 94,000 when I first started. But
To start with the affordable housing houses on Main Street.
Yeah.
I think that's when it started, which is like
It's a long time.
35, 40
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
I'm pretty sure
started
that's
a
when it
long
started.
time ago, yeah. Open Space Committee is looking at open space properties and allocation. So now they are working, that group is working hard on prioritizing property to dedicate as an open space properties in town. All of this between the small city loan program and the open space program leads to probably some kind of incremental update that is going to eventually be needed to our POCD. So now, if I can, I have a couple of things that I would like to recommend that you do after I go, because I don't need to do them. But I think planning department need to do better communication. So somehow this town should find some kind of money to help with our website. We need to better communicate with people. There is a lot of miscommunication, whether it's by choice. And I know that some people choose to stay uninformed and some choose to stay ill-informed. But for the most part, people are truly just not able to access information. That's like 90%. So I wish we would be able to fix that website communication kind of thing somehow.
We've never had a user-friendly website in this town, ever. I think it's gotten better, but it's still, maybe to the people who use it on a daily basis, but from the complaints I get, nobody likes it.
It really is not friendly. It really is not friendly. The regulations are probably the priority number one. Regulations are in a bad shape. They really desperately need to be comprehensively corrected. POCD could also be looked at, probably incrementally. Like, I don't think that we necessarily need to rehaul the entire POCD that was just adopted, but we could look at some sections. COVID was a big deal. Like, it wouldn't hurt us to take a look at the economic section and the, certain parts of it. I think we should adopt the bike path plan. I mean, we have one. It's just a matter of like sitting down and adopting it. And it would bring us to something that we know people want. People keep on talking about, we want bike lanes, we want this, we want that.
Where's the townwide bike plan?
The town engineer has like some kind of sidewalk bike plan.
Well, why aren't we using a greenway path in our greenways? Why don't we have something like the West Hartford Reservoir has, which is through their open space, and it's a nice wide path which walkers and bicyclists can use, and it's off the road, and it's someplace for people to go to get away.
So that's a
Mothers.
built infrastructure. In order to get built infrastructure, what you need to have first is a planned element that is where we are able to, so when application for subdivision comes in, our department has to have the ability to say, you need to give us a sidewalk. And then a person will say, no, that's too expensive. And then I will say, but yes, you are required because it's in my regulation. If I cannot say you are required because it's in my regulation, I can't say that. And I can't ask for that. And I can say pretty please 17 times, it doesn't matter. So we have to have a regulatory plan that's part of something where it can be demanded from developers that come in. Or we can do it as a town, feel.
As a town, doing it in starting, let's say, at the Young's Farm and doing a path through there all the way to Wallace, and then where do you go from there? I know that in previous staff has come up with greenway paths, but they haven't been paved or anything or marked out. And I just think that it would be a fantastic thing for the town.
It's that financial commitment, that's where it's going.
And maybe you can't do it all at once, but you do a little bit at a time.
So soon enough, you will have a town engineer and town planner, and absolutely, I mean, it is something that I have heard this town want.
They did just pave the piece between Maple Hill and Pheasant, so, I guess that's a start.
Yep.
Right? Because it was pretty much overgrown and not usable.
Right.
It's beautiful right now.
Yes,
Once
it
gets landscaped in, it's gonna be gorgeous. It's a
I'm
start.
sorry to interrupt.
Don't be
you.
sorry, like that's what it's meant. This is not intended to be like me saying, we should do this, we should do that. I mean, it's an amenity, like that's, like, I'm happy that you actually said that. And then the last thing that I'm going to say, I think we should also amend, and I said this as well, our accessory apartment regulations. There is a map that shows if you have properties that are 20,000 square feet, properties that are 40,000 square feet, properties that are almost an acre could accommodate additional dwelling units. This town has a great need for affordable housing, and we should be able to accommodate diverse styles of affordable housing, including, these small kind of homes for some people. So those are all my recommendations. Thank you for listening.
No, that's wonderful. Thank you.
Because I just said the town engineer were both, right? And I'm so succinct.
speaking of the town engineer, I know one of the commissioners asked me if, do we have an update on the plan he was working on for the New Britain Avenue Business District area? And if not, could you have maybe Eric check and report back to us at our next meeting?
Sure.
I'd appreciate it. Thank you. All set?
Yes.
Okay. Any other communications? Nothing else? Okay, well, we're at public participation. If there's anybody online that would like to speak, please raise your hand. Nobody online? Remarks from any commissioners? Commissioner Lenars, go right ahead.
So I think from some of the stuff that we just saw in our planner's report, I'm gathering that I'm pretty confident. I think this is your last meeting with us here. Okay, so.
You will see me in the attendees section.
You'll be in the audience?
Yes.
Perfect. So I just wanted to say, we all spoke the last time we got together, but to thank you for your work that you've done with this commission. I was on this commission, I don't remember, about 5, 6, 8 years ago for a planner that was here for a long, long time. I was sat with the planner that was here just prior to you, and then obviously with you here. We did some really nice things, and I think as a whole, the way in which this commission, through your leadership, along with Mike Donato, Eric Hinckley, and staff, before all these papers get to us, a lot of work is done in the background, which makes our job as commissioners very easy. We ask some minor questions along the way, and we kind of look like geniuses, but it's really the work that you guys do, along with our chairman as well, with you, because he works a little closer with staff sometimes than we do before the stuff gets onto our desk. So just wanted to say thank you. Good luck in your new endeavors. We wish you well. I'm sure you'll watch us every once in a while on TV or come visit us. Don't be afraid to reach out. Your opinions are always welcome. So thank you very much for all the hard work that you did along the way. You're welcome.
Thanks.
It's gonna be in the front row.
Leave, but not as a resident, right? You're still a resident of the town.
I'm still the
Still a
resident,
resident,
yes.
so she's still gonna be keeping an eye on us. Any other commissioners? Renata, thank you very much for everything, you and the staff, but thank you so much. You've been amazing, and I wish you the best in your new endeavors. Yep.
That's right.
It's been a pleasure.
It has been a pleasure, really. On occasion challenge, but for the most part, it was a pleasure. And this commission I did really enjoy. I can say that. Yeah. I don't say things that I don't think.
Nothing else? A motion to adjourn?
We'll move, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made, all adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody. Good night, everybody. Yep.